is we have in here the problem. The data of the Baguio Weaving Company shows the probability of earning a projected profit for the last 6 years. Or what is the mean or average projected profit of the company? What is the variance and what is the standard deviation? Now again, to have the variance, okay, to have the variance, that is the same as, of course, we have to recall our working equation. So our working equation is variance is actually the summation of what? The product of the difference of the variable x minus the mean, computed mean, raised to the second power, multiplied by its corresponding probability. So we have this one. Okay, so that is the notation for its corresponding probability. Now what about for the mean? We have to be reminded with the equation for the mean. So the mean is represented by mu. That is again the summation of the product of x multiplied by its corresponding probability. So we have this notation. Yeah. Okay. So that is for the mean. Okay. So that is for the mean. Now we are now ready to compute for the mean of this problem. So it says in here, what is the mean? Average projected profit of the Baguio Weaving Company. Okay, so how do we do that one? So again, in here we have to multiply the variable x multiplied by its corresponding probability. So we have this one, 3.7 multiplied by 19, 4.5 multiplied by 0.13. Now you might be saying, we have already answered this one. No, we have different problem. Okay, so we just made use of the same probability, but for the variable x, we have different variable x. So multiplying the first column and then the second column, so 3.7 multiplied by 0.19, it will give you, that is the same as 0.70. So round it off to the second decimal point. So we have in here 4.5 multiplied by 0.13. It will give you 0.59. Okay. Multiply 5.1 multiplied by 0.20. It will give you, that is the same as 1.002. 6.4 multiplied by 0.16. It will give you just the same, 1.02. Now 7.8 multiplied by 0.17, it will give you, that is the same as 1.33. And what about the last? 8.7 multiplied by 0.15, it will give you 1.31. So that it says in here the mean is actually the summation of this one, the total of this one. So this part, as you notice, this part is the same as this column. So if we are going to add them all at this column, it will give you the mean of the problem. So what is the mean of the problem? That is the same as we have to add them, 0.70 multiplied 0.70 plus 59 plus 1.02 plus 1.02 plus 1.33 plus 1.31. It will give you, that is the same as 5.97. So that is the mean of the problem. Now the next thing that we are going to have is, again, we have to compute now for the variance. Now what is the variance? The variance is actually the summation, okay? Summation of this one, the difference of the variable minus the mean, okay? So we cannot compute for the variance without computing first the mean, this one, okay? So meaning that is the same as x minus the mean, which is 3.7 minus 5.59. 5.97. So that is the result. And then after that one, raise it to the second power. After that one, multiplied it to its corresponding probability, which is the same as 0.19. So repeating the same procedure and then totaling this column, it will give you now the variance. So let's try to do it. So the mean is this one. The fourth column is 3.7 minus 5.97. 3.7 minus 5.97, it will give you negative, okay, negative 2.27. Okay, so let's try to redo it. 3.7 minus 5.97 equals, the result is negative 2.27. Okay, the other one is 4.5 minus 5.97. It will give you a result of negative 1.47. So negative 1.47. So what about this one? 5.1 minus 5.97, it will give you negative 0.87. Now what about this one? 6.4 minus this one, it will give you 0.43. I'm sorry. Okay. Now what about this one? 7.8 minus 5.97. It will give you 1.83. Okay. And 8.7 minus 5.97. It will give you 2.73. Okay. So we are done with this part. The next is we are going to raise it to the second power. The result of this one to be raised to second power. So that is the same as saying the negative 2.27 raised to the second power, it will give you 5. Okay, 5.15. Okay, so that is the same as the quantity negative 2.27. Okay, multiplied by negative 2.27, it will give you a result of, ayan, that is the same as 5.15. Ayan, 5.15. Raise it to the second decimal point. Okay, now what about this one? Negative 1.47, it will give you 2.16. This one, negative 0.87, it will give you 0.76. And 0.43, it will give you 0.18. Now 1.83 raised to the second power, it will give you 3.35. How about this one? 2.73 raised to the second power, it will give you 7.45. Now after having the after raising it to the second power, so we are already done with this one. We took the result and then raised to the second power, multiplied to its corresponding probability. That is the same as saying 5.15 multiplied by 0.19. So that is the same as saying 5.15 multiplied to its corresponding probability, 0.19. It will give you a result of, that is the same as 0.9785. So round it off to the second decimal point. So it will give you 0.98. How about this one? 2.16 multiplied by 0.13. It will give you 0.28. Now 0.76 multiplied by 0.20. It will give you, that is the same as 0.20. 0.15. Ayan, 0.15. Now, 0.18 multiplied by 0.16, it will give you 0.03. Now, 3.35 multiplied by 0.17, it will give you 0.57. And 7.45 multiplied by 0.15, it will give you, that is the same as 1.12. Okay? Now, notice that we are already done with this last column, which is this working equation. The result of this one multiplied to its corresponding probability. So we have in here, and it says in here to get the total. If you get the total of all this one, that will stand for variance. So the variance is actually the summation of all this column, which is, if we are going to add this column, it will give you, that is the same as 3.13. Okay, 3.13. Okay, so what is that? That is actually the variance. Now, before we move on, notice that again, we cannot compute for the variance if we do not compute for the mean. Okay, so we have in here the mean. After the computation of the mean, that's the time we can compute now for the variance. Now, but before we proceed for the standard deviation, what is the meaning of this mean? The meaning of this mean, which is 5.97, is actually the mean of the probability of projected earnings. Okay, it is actually the mean or average, say average mean of the probability of earnings that is earnings, probability of earnings, projected profit for the last 6 years. Probability of earnings projected profit for the last 6 years. For the last 6 years. So again, the problem is is actually discussing the probability of earnings. Okay, probability of earnings or projected profit for the last 6 years, or the projected profit for the last 6 years. Now, what about this one? Okay, so this part, this is actually the variance. Okay, variance. Okay, so this is the mean. Now, what is the meaning of the variance? Again, we have said that the variance is actually the measure. Okay, it is actually the measures of spread or dispersion of the data, dispersion of the data. Okay, or in the problem, the projected projected profit. So that is the meaning, the measure of the spread or dispersion of the data or the projected profit, of course relating to our problem. Now, what is the next? We're going now to have the standard deviation. So for the standard deviation, there is no problem for that. Standard deviation, how do we compute for the standard deviation? That is the same as saying, for the standard deviation represented by this working equation or notation, the square root of the variance. So whatever computed variance, to extract the root of that one, which is the same as 3.13, the standard deviation is actually, we have in here 3.13. The standard deviation is 1.77. Okay, 1.77. Okay, 1.77. Now what is the meaning of this standard deviation? This standard deviation is actually the distance. Okay, the distance from the given or the computed mean. So I hope you understand how to compute for the mean, variance, and standard deviation. Just follow this table. Actually, the table is your guide in the computation of the mean and variance and even the standard deviation. So notice that the design also of the table is actually design actually in accordance with our working equation. So notice that all the headings in here is actually seen in our working equation. So for x, it is actually the first part, which is the variable. For the probability, we have this one. Okay? Ayan. So what about for the mean? Actually, the product of the variable and then the probability. So that is the design of our table. Now for the variance, of course, we need these 3 columns. Okay? So that is the same as the result of variable minus the computed mean, which is this one. And of course, the variable minus mean raised to the second power, this one. So we have in here, actually this table is designed in accordance with our working equations. So as you can see, the last part which is this one, the difference of variable minus mean raised to the second power multiplied by its corresponding probability is actually this last column. Now definitely when we are going to add total, that is actually the symbol for, that is actually the dictate of the symbol, meaning you sum up them all. Okay, so that is how to compute for the mean, variance, and standard deviation. I hope I shared to you a very comprehensive and complete method of how to compute mean, variance, and standard deviation. Thank you and more power.